make homemade bagels, they're incredible. But when you make them with freshly milled grains, and you can make them in advance, and you've got a system so that they're frozen and ready to go when you need them, instead of trying to kickstart a huge project on a Sunday morning, this is the recipe you want. Let's make homemade, freshly milled bagels. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. My name is Tamitha. If this is the first time you're going to spend time with me in my kitchen, we're making homemade bagels, but we're using a blend of bread flour and freshly milled grains. You'll find that I very often, almost always, use a blend of bread flour and my freshly milled grains because that gives a much better texture. The reality is, would it be nice to be able to say, well, these are 100% whole grain? I guess. But the reality is the texture is not what I'm looking for in a really delicious, chewy, excellent bagel. I don't want to have a hockey puck that's in the shape of a bagel and be able to say, yeah, they're not great, but they're 100% wheat. I want them to be great and have the really nice flavor of those freshly milled grains, that beautiful flour. We're mixing two grains, one that's going to give us structure, one that adds that beautiful buttery flavor, and then we get our gluten development from our bread flour. This way, this combination gives us great flavor, it gives us great chew, it gives us health benefits, and it makes great bagels. So, what do we need to get started? Obviously, we need our bread flour. I am using King Arthur bread flour. It is what I use most of the time. We've got, for the freshly milled grains, now you can choose what you like. I am using the hard white wheat, and I'm using kamut, and it's one of my very, very favorites. I absolutely love kamut, however you're supposed to say it. It's great, it's delicious, it's not overly weedy, so your children will not object. It's got this buttery flavor, and it gives you the most beautiful golden color, which I really, really like. We've got, now this is important, this is malt barley syrup. Now, this is traditional in a bagel, in a really well-made bagel. This is traditional. It gives you that color. It gives you some of that shine. This is what you're looking for. If you don't have it, if you can't find it, you can swap out for honey. Is it exactly the same? No. But does it work? Absolutely. You know, I mean, we're not going to flip the world over because we can't find the exact ingredient that we like. On a good day, we find everything we need. That's great. But sometimes you have to swap out. Honey is your swap out in this case. We've got our yeast and we've got our fine salt. I created a whole kitchen ledger that explains the entire process of milling and all the different grains. It describes all the different flavors and behavior of the grains. I will link that for you in the description box. We've got both our grains. We've got the kamut here and the hard white wheat there. We turn our we turn our mill on. It's always going to have just a little in it from the last time. When you hear the stones again, let it go for another second and then shut her down. I am re-weighing just to make sure my math is exactly as it should be, and I should be spot on, but we're just going to check. Ha ha! Beautiful. And now we are going to weigh 600 grams of our bread flour. We always weigh in grams because it is incredibly accurate. It makes it much easier to scale recipes up and down, and it's the way professional recipes are written. This may seem odd to you, but we're even going to weigh the water. And that's going to be 620 grams of cool water because this recipe takes 2 days to make. It's going to have an overnight ferment, and that makes such a difference. I do include in the recipe a 1-day method if time is of the essence, but I will tell you that you will find, I'm busy talking and I made a mistake. We need to be at 620, there we go. For the love of all that is holy, I did it again. And I'm leaving it in because I'm only a person. And I make mistakes. Let me stop talking so I can, there we go. Sheesh, that was ridiculous. Okay. We weigh everything. That way everything is super accurate. It does take 2 days to make this recipe, and I will tell you why. The recipe, what you're going to get after you've made the dough and you've formed your bagels and you put them in the fridge overnight, the outside of the bagel forms a skin, and that's going to give you a much more beautiful texture on the outside. They're more visually appealing and the chew is better. If you don't have the time, I do include in the recipe the 1-day method, and it works very well. It makes an excellent bagel, but the best bagel is if you do let it rest overnight. Okay, so now we're going to combine our flours. Let's make sure we're in the screen here. We want to make sure that we've mixed thoroughly. We don't want any pockets. And you can smell freshly milled grains. They smell different, and it's just a beautiful smell. I am aware that there is an issue with getting mills. In the recipe, I do include for you some tips on working with grains that you get from a trusted mill. They're pre-milled, and I explain a better way to store them so that you can get as close a replica as possible, and you keep those grains in the freezer, that flour, excuse me, in the freezer, and it'll hold a little better for you. So just buy it in smaller amounts and go through it. I would not buy in bulk just to leave it in the freezer. And so we're still weighing, and we're going to add 30 grams of our barley malt syrup. And we're going to add it to our water. So start with a small amount, because once it's in the water, you can't get it out. So do a little at a time till you hit your measurement, because once you overshoot, you have to start over. That's wasteful of your syrup and your time, all that good stuff. We need 30 grams. All the recipe, the printable, everything is linked for you in the description box below the video. This printable is on the larger side. I give a tremendous amount of detail in this printable. I'm trying to make sure that I give you every bit of information that I have. I want to make sure that you have it too. Because it's so sticky, you don't want to just grab a big old spoonful of it. You'll get your measurement wrong, and then you'll be very annoyed. And we're going to add 7 grams of our instant yeast. I'm using instant yeast. It's what I always use. If you prefer to use active dry, you have to activate it first. Okay, there we go. We've got our 7 grams. Make sure your yeast is nice and fresh. If it is questionable, if you've had it around for a while, this is just too much effort to take the risk. Please get fresh yeast. Okay, mix it all the way through. We don't want any pockets. Okay, now I'm going to switch from a whisk. Now I'm going to use this. This is a Danish whisk, and it just works really well when you're mixing together doughs and batters. Works really well. I am going to just make sure I didn't leave any in the bottom. We did not add our salt. We are about to do something called Autolyse. Now Autolyse, whatever. I've taught this quite a few times. This is an important step, especially when you're working with freshly milled grains. Freshly milled grains are very thirsty. And so it takes time for that flour to hydrate. So it's important to give them 20, 30 minutes to really get going, get that water and syrup that we just included, get that absorbed so that the flour is ready to turn into a functioning dough. And it's very, very important to do that. Please don't skip this step. You see how rough this dough is? It's supposed to look like that. It is not hydrated. After the 20 minutes, you'll see a really big difference. I don't like to lose any of my stuff, so I will sit here and pick this off like a nut. Please pardon my nails. I've been gardening my little heart out, and for the entire summer, my nails always look like poop. But the truth is, my garden matters more to me than my manicure. So I switched to a rubber spatula, and I'm just scraping down. I don't want any of my weighed water and syrup mixture to be left on the side, because we need every bit that we used. I'm just kind of picking it up on the bottom and moving it to the top. We're not kneading at this point. See, I have all this loose flour on the bottom. I'm trying to bring that up so it has a chance to really be in contact with some of that moisture that we added. So when we don't have any more loose flour at the bottom, see that little bit that's there, we want to get all of that up. Okay, so I just kind of pick that up. It kind of forms a really rough, just like that. We're going to cover this with plastic. We want to make sure it does not form a skin, get a good seal, set a timer for 20 minutes. Okay, so our timer has gone off. Nice clean hands. And look at the difference. Just allowing time. This was a scraggly mess. It wasn't holding together at all. And now it picks up as one clump of dough. So now we have to add our salt, sprinkle it over, and I have just a tablespoon of water. It just helps. And we just work that in a little bit with our hand. Now this is going to go, I'm just working in the salt. You don't have to do that by hand. You can do it in the mixer. It's just a habit. Now we're going to go over to the mixer because you see how stiff this dough is. All right, so we've got our dough, we've added our salt, and we're going to let this run for 8 to 10 minutes. You see how hard it's shaking the mixer? It's working. I checked the dough at 8 minutes. It wasn't as silky as I'd like it to be. I want it to have a nice satiny shine to it, and it didn't. So I decided to add at least another minute. That's why we have a range of 8 to 10 minutes. We want to make sure that the dough has been kneaded and developed to the proper point. I'll show you what that is in just a moment. Okay, so we've got our bowl that we're going to do our bulk ferment in, and I'm just spraying it with a bit of oil. Okay, so just so that you can see what we're looking for. This is what we want. See how beautiful and supple that dough is? It bounces back when I poke it. It's beautifully soft, but this dough will not pass a window pane test. This is not sandwich bread. It's got a lot of gluten work. We built up a lot of strength while we were working in that mixer. But this is a low hydration dough, so this is going to take time. So now we're going to drop it right into our bowl. I just oiled it on both sides. We're going to cover with our disposable shower cap, very fancy of me. And we're going to let this rise. Now, it's very important that you understand that this is not meant to double in size. And if you allow it to double in size at this point during the bulk ferment, you risk overproofing and ending up with flat bagels. So we want to let this go for 45 minutes, up to an hour, but we want the dough to increase in size by 50%. Absolutely not double. And we are back, and our dough is right at about 50% in its growth. So now we're going to divide our dough into the exact sizes that we want. Now, very often I'll say things like, you know what, we'll just eyeball it. It's just not that big a deal. This isn't one of those times. We want each bagel to be exactly the same size. It's important for the baking process. It's important for the texture. This is the time when you want to take your dough, you want to weigh it, and then divide the dough by the number of bagels you're making. This recipe is for 12. So, okay, so we need 138 grams each bagel. Okay, so now all of our dough has been weighed out. You see it's all kinds of crazy pieces. We're going to roll into a nice tight ball. I've shown you how to do this many times, but I'll show you again. You're wanting to run this part of your hand along the board, and along with your dough. Now there is no flour or anything on this board. We need the board for surface tension. And if we put anything on the board that's going to make it slick, we're going to end up with little slippy things, and we don't want slippies. No slippies. So we want a nice tight ball, set it off to the side. Okay, so here we are all shaped, and now we're going to let our bagels, our balls of dough rest. This is called a bench rest. Why? Because in the baking world, your countertop is called a bench. And that's why these are called bench scrapers. And so everything's kind of worded that way. So when you're having your pre-shape and they're resting after being shaped, it's called a bench rest because they are quite literally resting on your bench. So we are going to just gently cover them with a towel. They will not be here long enough to worry about forming a skin or anything like that. We only need to let them rest for about 10 minutes. We're letting them relax from being so heavily handled while we were dividing them and then rolling them into a ball. We got the gluten very worked up. And so now we're just letting it relax so that when we go to shape our bagels, it's not a complete misery. Okay, so now we're ready for the next step, and that's going to be shaping our bagels. There are two ways to do this. You can do the poke a hole in the center method. You can use your thumb, or you can just use a little tool. I like to use a tool. I just don't, for whatever reason, I don't enjoy having my fingernails in there. It doesn't matter that I clean my hands with a brush, irrelevant. So then I stick my finger through, and then I roll my fingers through, and that opens up our hole. Now you want to open that hole wider than you think because these are going to rise one more time. And if you don't leave enough room in the center, your hole will close and you'll end up with a bagel that doesn't have a hole in the center, which is at the end of the world? No, but it's not right. Okay, so you can do it that way, and so you pull it apart with your fingers, just like that. Okay, and then you just move it right off to a sheet pan for it to go for its next rise. You do 6 on a pan because you don't want them to touch. That's important because if you degas them once they're on their final proof, that could be unpleasant. It's going to ruin your shape. Now we're going to shape these, and if you're doing the overnight rise, which I hope you are, the overnight ferment, you're going to shape all your bagels. You're going to get them all covered nice. You can use a bag to seal them in, put the sheet pans in a bag, seal the bag, or you can cover them with plastic. Just don't press it down. You'll degas your dough. If you don't have time for the overnight rest, then what you're going to do is you're going to continue from here and let them proof on the counter for 45 minutes to an hour. And if you're doing that, you got to get your water ready to boil on the stove. That's 3 quarts of water. And we're going to add a bit more of that barley malt syrup and some baking soda. And that gives us that beautiful finish that you're used to seeing on a bagel. So now the other way to shape a bagel is you're going to take this and you're going to roll it into a rope. The rope is about 9 inches long. Again, you do not want anything on the counter because this dough is not sticky. It's a low hydration dough. So it's already going to start sliding away on you. Don't look at my manicure. I've been gardening. Please don't look. Everybody close your eyes. Okay, so we want to just get this as even as we can. You don't want to have it, you see, I'm big here and tiny here. You want to try to avoid that. I'm sliding all over the board. You want to bring it in and then separate your hands. So you're going this way and then you're moving out. And that's going to bring your rope out to about 9 inches. That's where you want to go. This method is called the rope method. Okay? So we're right, yeah, that's about right. So now you're going to pick up the rope and you're going to come around your hand and you're going to overlap by about 2 inches. Okay? You're going to overlap and then you're going to just take that bit of your hand and just roll that part so it seals. Okay? And that is going to give you the same look. Okay, so that's good. That's a traditional way of doing this. And now you make sure that your hole is nice and open because remember, this is going to proof and that's going to swell up and your hole will become much smaller. And when you go into the hot water, it's going to puff up even further. So it's important that you have more hole than you would expect right about now. We just move this onto our sheet pan. So here we are. Our bagels are shaped. We've got them on a parchment-lined sheet pan. There's cornmeal down because we do not want this dough to stick. Now we're going to cover these nice and tight and these will go in the fridge and we'll see you in the morning. Okay, so we're back and we're preparing our boiling liquid. So we're going to do about 2 tablespoons of our malt syrup. And this stuff, if you remember, is extremely sticky to the point of being kind of obnoxious. And then we have to add 1 tablespoon of baking soda. There's going to be a chemical reaction that is going to be created here, and that's going to make a huge difference and give us the browning that we want. It's 1 tablespoon, but I'm using a teaspoon measure, and there are 3 teaspoons to a tablespoon. See that? Okay, you see this crazy chemical reaction we've got going on here. Use your spider to drop this in. And you see we're floating right away. Hey Siri, set timer 45 seconds.
45 seconds, counting down.
Now I'm doing 1 just to make sure that everything goes right. Make sure that we're going to puff up the way we want it to. Just in case I'm not happy with the lift I get, I can still add a little bit more fermentation. But this already I can tell is fermented beautifully. We're going to do 45 seconds on this side, then we're going to flip it over, do 45 seconds on the other side, and then we're going to take it out, and you need to have another sheet pan ready. You have to have your oven set to 450 degrees. Our timer went off. Restart the timer for another 45 seconds. Now I'm going to wait until this one is out, and then I can add more at one time. This was just my original tester. 45 seconds is over. Just remember what order you put them in, so you flip them in that same order. Reset the timer, another 45 seconds. This part goes fast, and it's really kind of fun, to be honest with you. And look how nice they are. We've got a nice float. All of our holes have been maintained. It's kind of annoying when you go through all this trouble and your hole disappears in the center. That's why I made such a fuss about making sure that hole in the center was bigger than you think you needed. We're out of the boil. Everything's nicely puffed up. We held our shape. All of our holes remained, which is very important. And now we're going to egg wash with just an egg white and a little bit of water. And I'm just using a silicone brush. And we're going to decide if you'd like them to be plain, everything bagel. I gave you a list in the printable of all different toppings. And of course, you can use whatever ones your family likes best. My family loves either plain, cinnamon, or everything bagel. I was going to do cinnamon raisin, but then I was threatened if I dared to put a raisin in the bagels, I was going to be sent someplace I didn't want to go. So I guess we won't be doing that. Okay, so we're just putting on our egg wash. Gives us that really pretty shine, and it gives us essentially glue that's going to hold on whatever topping that you'd like to have. Okay, so you have a couple of choices. You can sprinkle, if you prefer, a lighter coating, which my family does not. So it causes a lot of waste. You see all that bouncing? Or you can just take it, drop it in there, and you get a nice even coat, which is what is preferred here at the Mavrides household.
Or any real bagel establishment.
Or, according to my husband, he's not mic'd right now, any real bagel establishment. He actually wants me to dip the other side, but I refused. Mostly because he told me I'm 55 and not 54. He's got to pay for that. This particular everything bagel seasoning that I'm using is so good, and the aroma coming off of here is truly incredible. The garlic specifically is getting through my sinuses, which is really quite an achievement when you consider that my sinuses have been a disaster for a couple of days. See what we've got here? Look how pretty they are. And that you get that really nice coverage from dipping. I left 4 plain because my youngest, that is her preference. Unless I was going to make blueberry or rainbow. There was a place that we used to live in Pennsylvania. They made rainbow bagels. I don't believe for a second there was one natural thing in those bagels. She's been wanting them ever since. I'm sorry, I simply can't do that. These are going to go into the oven at 450 degrees. We'll be right back. Our bagels are in the oven. The house smells amazing. But now's the part where we want to have that system set so that we can have homemade bagels that are going to feel like they're going to taste like, they're going to bite like, they're going to chew like they were freshly made, but we made them in advance so that we can gather at our table with our family on a Sunday or a Tuesday, because we made a nice big batch and then we prepared them so that they're ready to be worked with for toasting and so forth at any time. The key to that is to cool these bagels when they come out of the oven 100%, no less than 90 minutes. We want them cool on a rack. Then you're going to slice them completely through, and then you're going to lay the halves still with their mate, so we're not mixing and matching. But then we're going to take those sheet pans and put them in the freezer and let them freeze for 1 hour. Now that's going to set the top of the bagel so that when you now put them back together again and put them in individual bags, they will not stick together. You'll be able to take them out and toast them as you will without having to worry that your bagel is stuck frozen shut. So the key to that is freezing them open after 1 hour and then put them back together, put them in individual zip bags with a little label so you can have each one with the type of bagel it is, and then you're ready to go. This works out really well. You can take a much bigger zip bag and gather them so you have everything bagel in one big bag, plain, cinnamon raisin, if you're allowed to have raisins, all those things, and you're ready to go. This works out really, really well. You can do a lot of bagels in one day. Well, it's a 2-day process, but you can just carve out some time, make a huge batch of bagels, all the different flavors that you like, and then do this process where you're freezing them, stacking them, labeling them, and you're set. Especially if you have a big family, this works out great. But even if it's a much smaller family like ours, we're only 4, and when my dad's here, we're 5. So I want to make sure that we can still have homemade food, whether we're busy, whether we're having guests, or whether it's just Tuesday. And here we are. Now, I want you to start checking your bagels at 15 minutes. You take their temperature. We always go by temperature. And if it's 200 degrees, stop. So some ovens, that's going to take longer. Some ovens, that's going to take less. If you're on convection, back your time down. If you're working non-convection, you're going to be closer to that 20 to 22 minutes. These are absolutely hot, but look at them. They're beautiful. Their texture is just right. They're crisp on the outside. They smell amazing. They're too hot to cut right now. It's very important that we let these cool 100%. If you're going to freeze them, slice them, individually quick freeze them, IQF, put them back together again, and package them up, and you've got bagels that are just perfect. You can also cut them in half, put them face to face, freeze them that way, but you may get a little bit of sticking. That's not at the end of the world because you will be able to pull them apart. I like to kind of do it this way and then give them that merge because then you don't have to, there's no fuss, they just pop right apart. These are phenomenal. Freshly milled flour, homemade bagels. Remember the goal, to make sure that our family gathers at our table. This will get them there. And as you keep making different flavors, it'll keep them there. Thank you so much for being here with me this week. I'm so happy you're here. I hope you love this. I hope you try it. I'll see you next time.